Our second reading this morning is from the first chapter of the book of John. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered him, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." He said to him, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened up and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
There's a famous game that many of us in our culture play, and it's the "where are you from" game. And if you're in a conversation with somebody you first met and you're talking about what you do, one thing that usually comes up is, "Where are you from?" And you'll typically respond with a city and state or a neighborhood in a certain city. And if that person is usually familiar with that place, they'll say a couple of things. "Oh, I have a friend who lives out in that place. Oh, I've been there a couple of times on business. It's beautiful there in the springtime." These are these common answers we have when we play the "where are you from" game. Now, where I'm from, if I hear somebody say the same place in an airport or some other place that's not San Jose, California, I'll say, "Hey, what high school did you go to?" People do that in Wilmington here. What school did you go to? If you find out you're from the same city or the same town. Now in seminary, there weren't many people who were from California, let alone from where I was from in California. And my last year, I met two friends who started their first year named Matthew and Jeremiah. And I knew Matthew before I met Jeremiah. And Matthew's talking about his friend Jeremiah, and I should really meet him. So the day comes, I'm going to meet this guy, Jeremiah. So Jeremiah shake hands, and he's asking me, how long have I been in seminary, yada, yada, yada. And then the question comes up, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Oh, I'm from San Jose, California." He goes, "Oh, what high school did you go to?" And he already beat me too. And I was like, "Oh, I went to San Jose High. What high school did you go to?" He's like, "Oh, I went to high school in Florida." Took the bait and bit it hard. So I've stolen that idea from Jeremiah. When I run into people about where you're from and they say their town, I'm like, "Oh, what school did you go to?" And they will fall for it every time. Now, it's not just people here who play that game of where you're from. My sister, as we speak right now, is out traveling the countryside of India for the next month and a half. And she has this blog that she's been writing. And one of the posts was about a town she was in, and they're having this big festival. And these people are young people in their 20s and 30s. They're coming to her and they're asking, "Oh, where are you from?" And she answers, "I'm from America." And they were like, "No, where are your parents from?" Now, if biracial children like the ones in my family know this game all too well, because people play this game of like, "I want to know what your ethnic makeup is, but I want to ask it in a friendly fashion." She knew that's what they were getting at the very beginning. So this game that we all play of "where are you from? Where are your people from?" is something that's played across the world and played in ancient times also. In this passage this morning, we see this game being played out in Jesus' time in this exact story. Now, the brief verses that we read have three characters: Jesus, Nathanael, and Philip. And we know a few things about where those people are from. We know that Philip is from Bethsaida because it says it in the passage. And Bethsaida is this town that's a Greek town that's very highbrow. They're well-educated people, and they have nice jobs in Bethsaida. And we know that Jesus is from Nazareth. But we don't know anything about where Nathanael's from. The only thing we do know is that he is not from Nazareth, because he is very quick to badmouth anybody from Nazareth. And if you were from a town, you probably wouldn't badmouth your hometown. So Nazareth, we don't know much about Nazareth from this passage. There's not much that's shared about what Nazareth is. And Jesus, as we know, comes from Nazareth. And the rumor is that Jesus is a carpenter, and he's the son of a carpenter. But Nazareth is a very podunk, middle of nowhere town. Picture Smyrna. Sorry if you're from Smyrna. Now, there wasn't much carpentry work to do in Nazareth because there's not a lot of trees around Nazareth. There's not a lot of homes around Nazareth. So what Jesus probably had to do was to travel into the capital city of Galilee, which is a city called Sepphoris, big city. Jesus would probably go in there to do carpentry work, but he'd also go in there probably to do stonework or to do gardening. So Jesus was most likely a day laborer, as was the case for most people from Nazareth. They had to travel into the forest to find work to do. So growing up in those times, it meant a lot to say where you were from. Most Jewish boys, in fact, all Jewish boys when they are first born, there's one track that everybody wants to follow along, no matter where you're from, no matter what your family does, and that is to become a rabbi. So every boy at a very early age will start to follow around a rabbi, and they will be this rabbi's disciples, and they'll learn things from the rabbi. And the rabbi, like a sports coach, will start to make cuts. There'll be rounds of cuts where kids are obviously not cut out to become a rabbi. So all these different cuts are made, and by the time you are 12 or 13 years old, you know if you're going to be a rabbi. You know if you're going to officially be one of these great rabbis' disciples to eventually become your own rabbi. And for the boys who don't make the cut, what they typically do is go back to their hometown. Now, if you're from a town by the water, you're most likely to have a job that involves something with the water, like a fisherman or a boat builder. If you're from a town that's by a bunch of fields, you're probably going to end up being a farmer. But if you're from a place like Nazareth, you're going to be a day laborer. Not the most glorifying of jobs. So where you are from, even in those days, says a lot about you. It says a lot about what you've been exposed to, what you can probably do. Now, I'm from San Jose, California, which is the very middle of Silicon Valley. And I went to college in the middle of Nowheresville, Kansas. So semester 1, I step into my class of Intro to Computers. And I step in there with a very cocky San Jose, Silicon Valley attitude that says, what can you in the middle of Kansas teach me about computers? I'm from Silicon Valley. I know this stuff. So I go to maybe the first 2 classes. Don't tell my mother this, but I did not go to class the rest of the semester except until the final. And I sit down to the final, and one of the things is making these crazy HTML things and formulas on Excel charts, which I have no idea to this day still how to do. And of course, I failed Intro to Computers my first semester because of a cocky attitude that you can't teach me something because I'm from the Silicon Valley. Now, Nathaniel, we don't know where he's from. In this story, our introduction to him is that before Jesus comes, he was sitting under a fig tree, which means he probably didn't make the cut on rabbi, and which means that his job was probably not that important of a job if he could be sitting under a fig tree. Now, the fact that he's sitting there tells us 2 things. It tells us one thing about Nathaniel, that his employment is obviously not that important. In the very beginning of this passage, the opening of the passage, it starts out, and the next day, and we hear this story, which means Jesus got up early, got a good jump on the day, and found these 2 potential disciples. So at the very beginning of the day, Nathaniel is not out fishing. Nathaniel is not out working the fields. Nathaniel is not out building homes. Nathaniel is just chilling out under a tree. So it's safe to say he didn't have that important of a job. The second thing it tells us is that Jesus knows Nathaniel better than Nathaniel knows himself. Nathaniel is sitting there probably sulking. He's not filled with a whole lot of pride because he's so ready and willing to bash this podunky town of Nazareth to say, what good can there be from somebody who comes out of Nazareth? Nathaniel probably doesn't think too much of himself. But Jesus sees through all of this. Jesus sees through this sulky person who's not proud of where he's from or what he does, and he sees this righteous person that's inside. What Jesus says about Nathanael is, here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. You mean this guy? The guy who doesn't really have an important job, the guy who's been laying and chilling out and relaxing under this tree all morning, this guy, this is the one who has no deceit in him? And we too sometimes sit under these trees like Nathanael. We too sit in doubt. We sit in insecurity, and we sit there, we're not good enough. We're not capable. That job might not be for us. That place might not be welcoming to us. We sit unsure of who we are sometimes, of who God might see in us. And we don't think that we're anything special. But in those moments we are sitting and sulking, Jesus knows our heart. Jesus knows our potential. Like the calling of Nathanael, who was chilling out under this tree and relaxing. Jesus knows that there is something there that can make and become a disciple. Jesus knows him. And Jesus knows you. But that's not even the best part of this. So Jesus, after Nathanael realizes that this Jesus knows him inside and knows who he is, Jesus says, you will see things greater than these. What could possibly be greater than a God who knows every inch of you and everything that you are possibly thinking? Knows you as this beautiful, created being. It's as if this moment Jesus has given this great pitch about this amazing product and all these things they can do, and he does the famous, but wait, there's more. There's more to this. That's when you know it's a good sermon. There's more to this God than just knowing you, than just knowing your inner being and who you are. This God that knows you is draped in majesty. This God that knows you is surrounded by a heavenly host of celestial beings. This God that knows you is the most powerful force in the universe. This God that knows you can see past all the things that you might be ashamed of and can see the righteous person that is called to stand up and to follow. This God that knows who doesn't care where you're from, because the most important thing to this God is that you belong. Amen.